I'm back. In the previous video, we added our first get mapping, which returned for us only a dummy class name. This time, I would like to implement a semi-real get mapping, which should return addresses or a list of addresses. But before doing that, we would like to add our first class for address. So let's get into our application and adding another package. We will call this package model. The package model will have all we will have all our models classes or our entities. So we start by adding the first class, we name it address. I have already prepared a data to not waste your time just typing, and I will explain what is the data as. So for the model class, all what I have been done is just generating the basic skeleton for the class, Control C and Control V. All what I needed here is just added the ID, country name, city, and address, and empty class just in case for invocation, and another class is full with our attributes. And getters and setters, adding equals, hash code for comparison in the future, and two string for printing information on the console. So that's it for our model class. You can go through it once more, stop the video and check the models and generate as well. I will leave a link to the GitHub repo where this project resides. So we have the model, but we need now to add our first get for our controller. Let's remove the string and we will return a list of address. We will call it get addresses, import class from Java. Get addresses because that's how you have a naming convention. Get addresses because this method is going to return a list of addresses. Then we need to return list of addresses in this area. Usually when you start to call something to return it from the controller, you need a service layer. So we need to add here a service layer, and this service layer should serve the purpose of serving your application by manipulating the data, adding validation, or regardless what kind of services you would like to do on this data. So let's call it service, enter, and we need to have our first class, we will call it address service. Usually in this address service, you have to manipulate all your data. We call it address service. And in this address service, we will have just dummy communication. Looks like we're communicating with some kind of database. I have also prepared the data to not waste your time writing them. So I needed first one to return a list of addresses. So I prepared only a dummy get addresses class that's mimicking the call to the database, returning a list of addresses. And I have the full address object, like I have the ID name, I have the country name, I have the city, and I have the address itself. So by generating this address now, I will be able in address controller to add my address service as a dependency. Remember that dependency because you need to connect this class address service to get the data from it. In Spring, we use annotations to manage a dependency. We will add auto-wired annotation. Auto-wired annotation will tell Spring when invoking this address class that this class address controller needs an instance of address service to run and to get data from. From here, we will do address service dot get addresses. That's the logic of your controller. It should be simple as much as you can. You shouldn't do in controllers a lot of calculations, servicing, or other stuff. Everything you need to do, you do it in address service, and you provide the controller with the response only, or maybe a little bit additional things you do. Our application is ready. Now let's start the application and test our first invocation. I am using, once the application is starting, I would like to run Postman. Postman is an API testing tool or endpoint testing tool. I'm using only this version. I would like to delete everything from here. Delete. Okay. So dismiss for the moment. I knew that my application is running using localhost 8080 and the API path is addresses. If I do send, I should get why? Yeah, because auto wired it will not work with address service unless you add here at service annotation. So to let Spring knows that this class address is used for dependency injection. So let's run the application once more. So we add annotation service because this is a service class. Now, when the call gets into the address controller, a Spring will check the address and you will see auto wired. The auto wired will call the Spring from the Spring context, will call the instance of address service to be used here. Already my address application started, is running on port 8080. I have the context path as a general one. And now let's check once more. Run and you have it here. Status is 200 OK. And you have ID, country, city, and address. You have everything listed here. This is the list of your address. Second get call we usually do is when you call something by ID, for example. So let's add the next one. We will add another at get mapping. And in this get mapping, we will add a pass variable. And this value will be only a placeholder. So you have to add these curly braces and you call this ID. From here, you will call public because you only want address by its ID, get address by ID, and you should provide the path of this address from where this placeholder will inject this value. That's why we add here path path variable. Add path variables indicate to Spring that the value comes inside this placeholder should be injected here because we use UUID as the ID we need it for our class. So Spring will take this ID value, inject it here, and then we need to provide it to another method will come from the address service dot get by ID, because this get by ID should call also my database to get this address by ID or throw exception if this address not exist. I'm also preparing another one method to make it easy. We have already this addresses, get addresses. Let's take a look. You can see it. I'm just list of addresses, dummy. And now I would like to get address by ID. All what I'm doing, I'm taking this get addresses because I consider it my database. And I'm stream like running inside. I filter it. And once I check this address itself from the stream by ID is equals the ID provided from the controller. Find me the first one or else throw will throw exception. Exception handled in Spring. We will talk about it later in separate episodes. Okay, so let's get back into our controller. We fix this one. Get address by ID. Now I have my method ready. Second one, get address by ID. Time to rerun my application and test it. We will go back again to our postman. As you can see from postman interface, you have here the method type you use, get, and you have here the URL and body headers authentication. We will speak about this also later. Let's say that now if I run get addresses again is return, I will take the first ID. And because I'm providing as a path variables means that it should be following by forward slash and then Ctrl V. Spring already will take this value from here again and then inject it here. After that, take it from this placeholder, inject it inside my path variables. So let's get in and send the call. Now I got my call, I got my beautiful country, Palestine, Jerusalem, and Freedom Street. So now how we can do that? What if we have a problem with ID I should get some exception. So let's send. Now I'm getting exception internal server error. That's because I'm not identifying any exception handling. So I'm getting only internal server error. So we will stop at this moment and we will continue later with a new get mapping. For example, post, put, delete, they are the main one. So see you next episode. Please stay tuned. If you didn't watch the previous video or the playlist of Spring Boot, you need to review it and check it to follow up with me in the upcoming videos. Thank you so much for your time. See you next time.